like that. I think that's great.
All right. I
Yeah,
don't
so
see any
thank you so
questions.
much, Rabbi Nachshon. That was very thought-provoking, very thorough, lots to think about, lots to process. I really appreciate your sharing your thoughts about it. So we will have a brief question and answer, so please put your questions into the chat. And while you are doing that, I thought I would just ask you if you could tell us a little bit about your work with the Jewish communities in Atlantic Canada. I think it's a very unique set of circumstances, and people might be interested in that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I didn't intend to start a community of faith at all when I moved to what's colonially known as Atlantic Canada. I was serving a congregation in Florida, a Reformed Jewish congregation, virtually. But when people heard there was a Reform rabbi that was moving to this part of the world, I started to get a flood of requests because there is no Reform community east of Montreal. And so I've been working, I reached out to Reform Judaism, Reform Jewish Community of Canada, and we developed Reform Judaism in Atlantic Canada, which has continued to grow and evolve so that I could provide some virtual services. And I'm working now with the Union of Reform Judaism to take what I'm doing here and to expand it so that we can actually support geographically isolated minority Jewish communities who are progressive or reform across the planet, really, but certainly larger than just in Atlantic Canada. And we have people who join us from Arkansas and Texas and places where there are no reform progressive approaches to Judaism and who are drawn to this sort of restorative approach to Judaism that I'm trying to co-create with others here. So it's a work in progress that has continued to evolve. I never intended it, but the desire has been tremendous. And I will say that one of the driving forces is people who are 2S LGBTQIA or neurodivergent who do not feel or disabled or who have financial barriers or geographic barriers who do not feel able to, for whatever reason, access religious communities, Jewish communities. And that's what I'm trying to create. There should be a place where we can all feel. And while it's true that you can watch services online, and some of my colleagues do beautiful services, when you're watching other people, it's like you feel like you're on the outside. And when you are used to being on an outsider, that experience actually causes harm. And so I try to have a trauma-informed approach to the way I lead services and to try to create that sense we're all virtual, we're all doing this together. It also reflects my theology that we shouldn't be investing in buildings, we should be investing in people. And purchasing land on unceded indigenous territory when all of us are virtual, we all live in very geographically isolated areas. Although there are some people who are gathering in Kijipuktuk or Halifax or in other places for occasional like Shabbat dinners, they live stream the services and they come together. But you don't need a rabbi for that. Like you don't need a building. You could be Shabbat in the park where I did yoga on the beach with and we did tashlich. So reinventing Judaism for a new era is what I feel called to do, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share a bit of it here.
Thank you for that. There's a couple of questions that have come in, and please do just write them into the chat with a question and answer tab there. Hebrew is a gendered language. How do we get around that?
Yeah, so the non-binary Hebrew project does some really good work around it. It is a creative language. It's worth noting that what we think of as Hebrew, the Israeli Hebrew that we talk about, was actually created about 100 and something years ago by Ben Yehuda. It was very consciously created. And there's an institute that is working on constantly creating new things. So, for example, cell phone, right? That's Pelephone with Pele means miracle, so Pelephone. We are always, it's not new to create new things. Yes, there's some gendered language specificity, but what I'm trying to say is even in the gendered language specificity, there's still that fluidity that we see in the plural form of God in the Bible, and the non-binary project is a good one. I also see Pi Days in Canada. Can those in America participate? Yes, please. My goal and my plan is actually for next year, Pi Day to be across Turtle Island, no, both north and south of the colonial border that divides us. But for now, we're focused, since we're just starting, on across Canada and in partnership with the United Church of Canada that has really taken a leading role, and to which I owe them my gratitude, because they have a really phenomenal step-by-step approach for how to make communities inclusive. And while the Union of Reformed Judaism has made a statement of acceptance and inclusion and taken some steps, there's still a lot more that needs to be done. And I am the first person, because I've experienced harm and I've try to advocate for non-binary or transgender congregants to be able to access the brotherhood and sisterhood programming of their choice, and been told no by other congregations that I had the chance to work at. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And I think that, there's no harm in saying, oh, you're doing it better. How can I learn from you? That's the Chavruta Jewish way. And then how can we Reform Jews become that beacon of light for our other Jewish siblings in other communities that are maybe more conservative or traditional? And then how can we collectively be that light unto the nations? That is our task. That's what we're here to do. So yeah, Pi Day, go to it. It's PIEDAY.ca. And it's really cute, easy to use, and you'll see bonus video of me talking. And then there's also a video of a panel with other clergy on what does it mean to be public, intentional, and explicit in inclusion on queer inclusion in sacred spaces.
And because it's online, I guess people in the States or
Yeah.
the world can also
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, it's going to be on Zoom, and I'm using my Zoom. I know maybe we're using it for me. Anyways, so it'll be on the afternoon, I guess 12:30 Eastern, 1:30 Atlantic. I don't remember what time that, I guess that means 9:30 Pacific. And it'll be a virtual launch. We have an interfaith um, petition asking all of the interfaith, right? So every clergy person, whether you're Muslim, we've got an imam, we've got rabbis, we've got Christian clergy leaders, communities of faith signing. Would love to have your clergy and your communities be signing. All of you who are joining, ask them. If you go to Pi Day, you'll see that, or you can contact me as well. If you go to rabbinadia.com, I will answer your email, and I can send you a link to the Interfaith Coalition. If you want to be part of the organizing, we would love to have you as well. This is just a collective thing. It's not like one person.
Great. That's a wonderful effort. I really appreciate it. So we've got time for maybe one more question. Could you tell us a little bit about how you're doing degendering ceremonies, or how people can kind of integrate non-binary?
Yeah, I mean, I think we create it on our own. So my approach as a therapist and as a chaplain is to create every ceremony individual with each person. When someone is choosing to become Jewish in an official way, I work with them to help them figure out the language explaining why Reform Judaism believes in educated choices, so each person can make their own choice if they understand the intention, and then how does that manifest in their own spiritual life. Increasingly, like virtual ceremonies are the way to go for a lot of different reasons. So I see a question here about B'nai mitzvahs, being able to have, or Beit mitzvahs, which is the non-binary option as opposed to bar or bat. So a Beit mitzvah, for example, you can do it virtually. You can go online. You can see me reading Torah in Hebrew. During COVID, we figured a lot of these things out. So it's feasible to do, and that allows for people from family members to be present. It makes it much more interactive. So but I'm hoping that the Union of Reformed Judaism will continue to invest in geographically marginalized communities, and really grow that, because more and more of us can't afford to live in big cities. And so while we used to think it was safe to be in bigger cities because rural communities didn't feel safe in terms of anti-Semitism. You know, having a house that we can afford or an apartment that we can afford is also hard. Um, yeah, there's a question about being non-binary in a synagogue that claims to be affirming but has only a brotherhood and a sisterhood. So this is like this is brand new. Like I don't know anyone else who's talking really about it except for a few people here and there. And so I'm trying to build momentum and understanding and awareness. And if you are interested, I'm thinking about maybe starting a change.org petition or something. For now, I've been in conversation with Rabbi Rick Jacobs, who's the president of the Union of Reform Judaism, who has been very supportive. I want to also comment that Lori, who's the executive director of the Canadian Reform Movement, has been very, very supportive. So I do think that there's some work that's going to happen across Canada to work on how do we create more inclusive spaces, whether it's GSAs, whether it's other things, looking at policies around inclusion and safety, safer spaces, recognizing that safe is a journey. We'll never get there, but we can always work towards becoming safer by recognizing it. But this is we're in a new era, so we're figuring it out together. So my answer is join me in helping to figure it out. And I don't know what I don't know yet, but I know that the status quo is causing people to want to hurt themselves, and that's not good. So for Henry's sake, and for mine, I mean, I was forced to participate and lead Jewish women's programming against my will. And it was deeply harmful to me on many, many levels. So.
All right, well, I think we're going to wrap things up now. I want to thank you so much for sharing so heartfully and so thoroughly and deeply with us your thinking around, and I know it's an evolving process, but very, very thought-provoking and I think healing for a lot of people to hear your message. And I also just want to respect and acknowledge your courage in speaking to these issues just so fully and wholly. It's very moving. Yeah.
Thank you. I am very grateful. I said to you at the beginning, this is the first time that I'm speaking publicly about all of this. So I'm really honored and grateful for the opportunity to do so, as my voice is still in the process of becoming, and I am in the process of becoming less than a year into my own gender transition. And so I'm just grateful for this opportunity. Thank you for including it and including me.
And we will be sending out a follow-up email with the recording so you can share it or you can rewatch it if you want to dive in deeper. And we'll also share some of the resources that the rabbi shared today. So you can look forward to receiving that in the next few days. Before we wrap up, I want to invite you all to join us for our next and final speaker in our 6-part series, and that'll be Sunday, April 7th at 11 a.m. Pacific time on Zoom. And we're really thrilled to have Bonnie Stern and Anna Rupert. Oh, I've lost my notes here. Bonnie
Sorry,
Stern and Anna Rupert, that's okay.
I thought I'd show it for everyone.
Yeah, that's fine. Who will join us for a dialogue on intergenerational Jewish cuisine. And they'll explore the world of Jewish cuisine, highlighting the deep connections between food, comfort, culture, and family. And Bonnie Stern is one of Canada's most beloved food writers and personalities. And she's also an amazing cooking instructor, won awards. She's the founder of the Bonnie Stern School of Cooking in Toronto. And she's taught cooking classes around the world, authored 12 best-selling cookbooks, and hosted 3 national cooking shows on CBC. Bonnie will be joined by her daughter, Anna Rupert, who's a highly respected speech pathologist and researcher. And together they co-authored their best-selling cookbook, Don't Worry, Just Cook. So that should be a great way to wrap up our series. We've got the link, I think, maybe in the Q&A, possibly. If not,
Yes.
it'll come with the follow-up email. Before we wrap up, I want to thank our wonderful team of Building Bridges volunteers. We've got Ann Petrie, Jessica Havens, and Sam Margolis, as well as our board and Rabbi Lynn Greenoff for all their support in putting together this series. And our gratitude goes to the Jewish Federation of Victoria and Vancouver Island for their generous funding. And we also just recently received matching funds from the what's it called? There's a Jewish foundation in Vancouver. Sorry, I've forgotten the name of it. I should have written it down. But we just heard, so I'm very pleased about that.
Mazel tov.
Yeah. And we're grateful to Rabbi Nachshon and the Reformed Jewish Community Atlantic Canada for co-sponsoring this event. And I understand that many of you have already donated to Kol Mayim when you registered for this talk, and we're so grateful for that support. But if you would like to make a donation, it will help us to continue to build this vibrant Jewish community at Kol Mayim in Victoria. So thanks to each of you for joining us today. We appreciate your presence. And I just want you to once again join me in offering our heartfelt and respectful appreciation to Rabbi Dr. Nachshon Siritsky for the insights they so generously shared with us today. And I hope they have inspired you to think outside of the box as we all evolve our understanding of God and gender.
Thank you. And I wanted to just do one last plug. Some of you might know Rabbi Elise Goldstein, who was the first female rabbi of Canada. She just published with City Shul a new non-binary translation of the prayer book. So I do want to invite you to check out what she published. And if you don't know more about her journey and her family's journey, the gender fluidity is part of it, and it's beautiful to see how that has manifested in her advocacy with this new translation. It's a really beautiful, if you know Rabbi Elise Goldstein, she's like brilliant. So a really beautiful translation of the prayer book that is worth knowing.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you again. It's been a moving experience hearing your journey, and we really greatly appreciate it. Sam, you can stop the recording now, and we're going to end the session.